Yo, what up? Hope you're doing well. It is Chris from Black Land Ownership, All Things Gamba, Brooklyn Wildlife. And if you've known me the past 15 or 20 years, then you know I have been involved in alternative and experimental and exploratory art, curation, music, or what have you, even in terms of philosophical thought and what I wanted to explore intellectually and academically. I've never been much for the mainstream. I've never really enjoyed what you get on pop radio. Like as an adult, obviously as a kid I was into it. But as an adult, I've never really enjoyed TV, radio, movies. I've boycotted the movie industry since college. Like I would not go to a film. Like maybe once every 3 years I actually pay to go to a movie theater. But I make a lot of art. And so I am involved in the creative process. I love art. I love music. I love hip hop. I love the culture. I love the experiences of traveling and sharing the art with people. But it would be easy to say, well, Chris, your beliefs are fringe, or the way you look at the world is odd, which is why you do odd stuff. And I want to recenter for a second. And even though, yes, I may make weird art or I may be into weird things, it doesn't mean that I don't have a basic sense of how, the human experience could function, has functioned, will function in the future. And there's this element that I'm noticing that is bothering me of forgetting that it's one humanity. And there's this notion right now that, like, if you don't fit a certain type of identity, then you are less human. And as an artist, I've never felt that. I feel like one thing with art is that it has connected me to all things in the universe. It has helped me understand that we are all intertwined together. There is no us versus them. There's one universe in a multiverse of universes, but we're in the universe where we are all interconnected. We as humans are all interconnected. We are connected to the animals, the plants, the minerals, the other elements around us. And through art, I really have felt that. I've seen it. I feel comfortable saying that there is no partition between life. We are all in this sphere of life and being and evolving in and out of death together. It then allows that if you don't remember that, you could say humans who aren't of the same identity should not be treated equally. So you could say, well, if a person's identity should not be treated equally. So you could say, well, if a person's doesn't have a certain type of education or experience, you can treat them different. Or if a person hasn't had certain paperwork, you can treat them differently. Or if a person's from a certain place, you can treat them differently. And I don't accept that. Like, as a black person, it's wrong that there were people at one point who were like, black people aren't human, so you don't have to treat them with humanity. That also gives insight to where, for Native people who are in America, or people who are now called Indians, that at some point someone said they were savages, so you don't have to treat them as humans. Well, that makes me think, well, what's going on now? Like, we look at people and say, well, you're a migrant, you're illegal, we don't have to treat you like a human. How is it that just because your paperwork isn't right, you are criminalized as a human? Now, I get the idea that the U.S. has laws and you have to follow. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the reality of human beings cannot be categorized as illegal on the planet. And what are we willing to do to people once we've decided they're illegal? What are we willing to do to people once we've decided they're not part of our tribe? And that frightens me. The notion that you could look at people around the world and say, well, look at these people in Rwanda or in Yemen or whatever, bomb the shit out of them and no one cares. You could look at it and say, Palestinians, 50,000 people die, no one cares. Well, people do care, but not on the scale that I would expect. And why? Because they are a different group? Why? Because they haven't followed a political path? Why? Because they don't adhere to your moral, social, or ideological parameters? I'm having trouble with how many people are able to distance themselves from the other humans. And they're able to say, well, that person's unhoused, I don't care about it. Well, that person is a queer person, I don't care if they get beat up. Well, that person is trans, I don't care if they die. It's baffling to me what is being supported, what is being amplified, the notions of what is important. Recently, the one of the people involved with Doge, I'm not going to use the name, I don't want to highlight them, said that empathy was one of humanity's greatest weaknesses. That's banana cakes to me. Literally, what allows humans to have a social fabric and have lived for 100,000 years as humans is our empathy, is our compassion, our need to take care of each other, our need to see the similarity in us more than the difference, and the reality that all throughout history, different groups of people got along. I don't understand this Eurocentric new model that humans never liked each other. That's a lie. That's what the colonists want to tell you so that you keep fighting with other people. All right? rich people and poor people, we're human. Black, white, human. Male, female, trans, non-binary, human. And whenever we allow ourselves to dehumanize and say, well, that person doesn't deserve humanity because they're a gang member, because they're in the wrong gang, because they're a police officer, because they're a politician, because they're a drug addict, whatever the reason is that allows us to remove humanity from people, it's frightening me. I am asking people, I'm like hoping, and whatever I believe in terms of prayer, that people remember the connectivity and the universal intertwined nature of our being. And although it can seem like a person's against you, you sometimes have to remind them. Like, you ever had a family member that's going off on you and you got to say, like, bro, we are not actually against each other. Like, you're wilding right now. I understand you're upset. I understand I did something. You're mad. Your emotions. But, yo, you got to remember, we on the same team. We are working together towards making each other's lives less difficult. Now, there may be things I need to do in that process you don't like. There may be things that I don't like. But we have to remember that we are not actually in opposition to each other. And I am not in opposition to Trump people. I do not believe in racism and supporting racism or sexism or transphobia, homophobia, anti-queerness. I don't believe in dismantling the infrastructure of our government in order to help make other people rich. But it doesn't mean I'm against any individual. What it means is I want to fight for what I believe in. I want to stand up for the people in my community that matter to me. But that doesn't mean I want your community to suffer. It doesn't mean that I want you to lose because we are in opposite feelings. And it's just something I wanted to touch in on. Like, when I watch the news and I see these people talk so crazy about folks, and it's like, you have acted like Haitians aren't humans. You're acting like migrants aren't humans. You're acting like Venezuelans aren't humans. You're acting like people from all the countries around the world that aren't white and European aren't human. And you don't want them to come to this country. You don't want them to engage with your society. You don't want them to be a part of the fabric of humanity. Yet, we okay supporting the Afrikaners that took land from South Africans and who are now getting kicked out. Now, again, I don't have to hate anybody involved, but I can say, yo, if right now we're fighting a war in the Levant, removing people who had been there for thousands of years to replace them with people who have been European for the past 200 or 300 years, that's confusing. When you're fighting to support the Afrikaners and make sure they have a safe space to go as they get moved out of South Africa because they were land stealers at some point, and now the next generations are dealing with that. But we won't support the black folks here. We won't support the trans folks here. We won't support the veterans here. It's confusing to me. And part of it is because we've distanced ourselves. And so I want to bring it back to like one love, one humanity. It's not all the same culture. We don't all do the same thing, but we aren't necessarily in opposition to each other. And even when people are being violent, we have to remember that that's a tool of other violent people, and that we have to remain steadfast and use strategy, because you can't be more violent than the most violent, oppressive entity in the world. So you have to come up with another means. All right? So I'm going to holler at y'all. Y'all be safe. One love.